You're listening to CHUO FM 89.1, Ottawa University Campus Radio.
Live from Ottawa, it's Apartment 613.
Good evening, Ottawa. This is Apartment 613 Live on CHUO 89.1 FM. My name is Livia Belcea. Tonight on the show, we welcome local horror author Michel Weatherall, and we'll hear some classical and metal tracks he's paired up with his first book titled The Symbiot. But first, I'll kick off the show with a song by Bull Domino called Seven Seas. Bull Domino is from Ottawa, and the band is performing live alongside James Blonde and Bitter North this Saturday at Live on Elgin. Cover is just $10 at the door, and the show starts at 9 p.m. Check these bands out. It's going to be a good night.
You were a remedy, and I remember every single thing you said to me, girl. I got hoping, going out of my mind in your living room. I'm kinda out of shape, but I got some time, so I'm gonna wait for. Another open door, looks like you were the woman I was hoping for. You got that love and the key to my heart. I'm feeling sure and I'm falling apart. What a tragedy, only think about the winter in the summer heat. I sailed the seven seas, told the Lord I don't want to go to heaven, please do. He said, here, take this book, it won't hurt your mind to have a second look. Said I'm the devil's son, don't test me or get smoked by my rebel gun. You got that love and the keys to my heart. I'm feeling sure and I'm falling apart.
You're listening to Apartment 613 Live. I'm your host, Livia. The track in the background is called Seven Seas and is by the local band Bull Domino. You can catch Bull Domino this Saturday night at Live on Elgin, performing with James Blonde and Bitter North. The next song we'll hear is Into the Lungs of Hell by Megadeth. Local horror author and poet Michel Weatherall paired up this piece with his first novel, The Symbiot, along with a few other metal and classical tracks. Stay tuned to Apartment 613 Live to listen to my interview with Michel and to find out how the book and music pairing came to life. Here's Into the Lungs of Hell. Thank you for joining me on Apartment 613 Live. You're a local author here in Ottawa.
Absolutely. I'm glad to be here.
And what kind of genre are you writing? You're a fiction writer, but you haven't really attributed too many labels to the type of writing that you do.
No, that's always a difficult question. I get asked that a lot of time at book signings. Ultimately, the answer would be horror, but I'm not comfortable with that because I think horror needs to be less graphic, less gratuitous, more cerebral. So I'm not really sure where to categorize that. More of a weird fiction, maybe.
Okay, what kind of audience are you writing for?
That's a good question. That's funny, just coming here today, I met a fan in the park coming across the street, and that was really cool. I thought I was going to be late because of it. But the people tend to be all over the spectrum. I don't really know if there's a specific type or not.
And you have a few series that you've written and that have other editions that are coming this year.
Yeah, the primary one is a trilogy. Right now it's a trilogy called the Symbiot series. It's 3 books. The first one is the Symbiot, the second one is the Hunt Symbiosis, and the third one is Necropolis, which is the larger of the 3. And then I'm working on a 4th and final one for this series called the Refuge Chronicles. It's going to be a bit of a handful because I decided I wanted to do it as a series of vignettes originally, and now it's morphed into probably about 14 novelettes They're going to be released and available on ebooks individually, but in the print edition it'll be one volume. I'm about halfway through right now. I've been saying online early 2017, but I don't think that's going to happen. I'm at about 50,000 words, and I'm thinking it's going to hit probably about 100. The series is, in the first one, the main character is a master pianist, and he's jaded with music today. He's looking for something beyond that. And I'm not going to give a lot away. This is the opening chapter. This is what triggers everything. Is he stumbles across this old piece of music and traces his composer's ancestors back to today, and they figure out how to play it and perform it. And what they discover that it wasn't a piece of music that was lost from history. It was removed from history. It opens up a portal or a gateway outside of our universe and lets something out that shouldn't have been. And that's the catalyst. That's a trigger event. And in this initial event, he loses his wife. Now, his motive is trying to find her. He never gets to do that because of the fallout of it. But that's the whole first book. The second one, The Hunt, Symbiosis, follows the story of his wife's point of view. And where that goes, it starts to escalate. In the first one, we're dealing with, not literally, but we're dealing with academics with maybe pistols. In the second one, we're getting to a larger, more paramilitary dealing with it. By the time I get to the third book, Necropolis is set in a 1925 archaeological dig, now, and in ancient Egypt, and it jumps back and forth between those three timelines till it draws it all together in the end. I won't say a lot more because it starts getting complicated at that point. And originally that was supposed to be the end, and I've got several emails over the last year of a lot of fans like some of the secondary or incidental characters from the whole series. And they wanted to know what happened. Like, we never really find out what happened to them. We can assume it doesn't go well, but we never really find out. And I got the idea of the Refuge Chronicles as revisiting them all slowly, each individual. Without giving too much away, there's one character in the second book, a female RCMP officer, and through no fault of her own, she kind of has her mind taken over, and she opened fires on children. We come back to her 7 years later, and she's still, from the reader's point of view, we know what happened, but from her point of view, it was her. Mm-hmm. She did it. She dealt with this, and a lot of it starts coming back to these secondary characters. And what I wanted to wrap up this series in the third book, Necropolis, it didn't work. I can't wrap up the whole series in the end of the fourth one.
Okay. There's a historic element that seems to play a big influence in your books. But I'm trying to get a sense of what else inspires you. How do you come up with your characters and the stories around them?
The primary inspiration comes from the 1920s and 30s author H.P. Lovecraft. It's actually built in a Lovecraftian world. The characters kind of take on a life of their own. I've been asked this one before, and it's funny because the first one and the first half of the second one were written about almost 20 years ago, and they just got parked for the longest time. I had a stumbling block trying to get around it to get to the third one. And I finally got them all put together and put out, and I knew there's a character in the second book, because of the storyline, it needed to die. And when I got to the point of actually writing their demise, you almost fall in love with the character. Like, they take on this life of their own, and I knew it had to happen, but you don't want it to happen anymore. And I've heard from some people, I've heard some from fans that they were like, how could you have her killed? How could you do this? And it's not that it's a good thing, but it's good that that feeling comes across.
Well, there's another series that is very popular that tends to kill their characters when you don't expect them. Let's get back to Lovecraft, because I've noticed the term Lovecraftian world been coined quite a bit to describe your series. I had no idea what it meant. And I was going to ask you, but I guess you mentioned this has to do with the author Lovecraft.
Yeah, he wrote primarily in the 20s and 30s. There's an entire world of mythos, the Cthulhu mythos, that evolves around his world at work, and my books are based in this world, more or less. There's two ways you can look at it. One way is the theme of it itself, and the other one is the Lovecraftian horror is a kind of horror. And it's funny that this came up because I didn't realize this until a fan pointed this out to me. Generally speaking, in Lovecraftian horrors, the main character is always male, an academic, and a recluse. And in the first book, that's the case. But the thing is, what I didn't realize, and it was pointed out to me, by the time we get to the third book has quite a few characters in it, and the majority of main characters, both villains and good guys, are women. And they're not damsels in distress or eye candy. They're very powerful central key roles in it. And again, that totally breaks the Lovecraftian mold because that's not what he did. It wasn't intentional. And like I said, I would never picked up on it until somebody had pointed it out to me. And I thought it was kind of cool because you're taking something, at least you're beginning in one area, and it's kind of taken out of life and evolving on its own.
It must also be a pretty cool compliment. I mean, you were inspired by this writing from the 20s, 30s, and this is the style that has been attributed to your style.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's really cool.
That is really cool.
Yeah. In terms of the main character in your first book, you mentioned music. That's a very important element, particularly exactly what triggers, I guess, his adventures at the beginning.
Yeah.
And you've also paired some classical and metal pieces to this book.
Yeah. No, what's really cool is in the beginning, one of the opening scenes in the second book, it's a character basically in a library researching, and he's reading, he's listening, he has headphones on, he's listening to Creeping Death from Metallica, and he's also reading a couple of books trying to figure something out, but it's between the music he's listening to and the books he's researching that the idea clicks with him. Now, it was a bit of a nightmare for me to get the permission to have the lyrics in the story, but the theme of it is some of the characters like that kind of music. Well, the main character is more focused towards classical music and what might be called high music or proper music. And I came across the idea later, because music is a theme throughout this whole series. I came across the idea on the website, at least, to make these tracks available, because you can't listen to music in a book. And some of them are, admittedly, some of them are obscure. So you can go to the website and listen to all the tracks and songs. Sadly, the only piece of music you can't listen to is the actual piece of music that triggers the event, because it's not real, it's fictitious, it doesn't exist.
Well, maybe an opportunity to create it with a local musician in Ottawa. That'd be really cool. Where can we see you next? You've had a few events last year, and then I think there's a few events coming up in February where we can meet you and talk a little bit more in person about your new series.
Yeah, absolutely. In February 11th, I'm doing, and this is a mouthful, Goddess of Love Valentine's Psychic and Craft Fair. It's at the Bronson Center. And then on the 25th, I'm going to be at Origin Trade Coffee House on the Byward Market.
Yeah, on York Street.
Yeah, on York Street. And I'm kind of stoked about that one because I've been focusing more, and I want to continue doing this. Like in March, I'm at Alice's Village Cafe out in Curb. I'd like the smaller coffee house venues where you literally sit down and have a cup of joe or tea with people and chit-chat, because when you're doing the events at Chapters or Kohl's or local bookstores, they're good and they're great, but it's not as intimate. And we did one back in November at the Morning Owl in Canada, and it was fantastic to sit and talk with people, because like some of the people in Ottawa have the best conversation you're ever going to get into.
Yeah,
So I really enjoy that.
There's nothing like sharing your passion, particularly if you're talking to other people who are avid readers, who
Absolutely.
are your avid readers, essentially.
Well, the other thing that's really cool about it is the majority of conversations always gravitate towards people's dreams and hopes and ambitions. Mm-hmm. And, I'm a firm believer that there's a book in everybody. And I think the biggest thing that holds us back, to be honest with you, is fear. And, we got to get out there and write it and do that stuff. And, it's easy for me to sit here and say that. I'm afraid, too. Like, there's times where I'm doing book signings or whatever, and I always have this fear that somebody will figure out that I don't know what I'm doing, and I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just winging it.
Wow, that's an interesting feeling. I think a lot of us feel that. Not necessarily just in writing, but in different parts of our lives, mm-hmm. right? Like, you're always learning as you go, and that's the whole point, I think. Is there anything else that's coming out in the near future, and where can we find your books, whether in print or in digital format? In digital format, you can find them they're available on Amazon, Kobo, Barnes & Noble, Apple iBooks, Google Play, Smashwords, and a lot of times there will be promos on Smashwords. You can get free coupons and stuff. As far as locally, you can my titles are at Perfect Books on Elgin Street, Kohl's at Bayshore, Black Squirrel Books and Cafe in Bank Street, Quibble's Corner out in Canada, Comet Comics, I have a hard time pronouncing that one, on Bank Street, Octopus Books in the Glebe, Singing Pebble Books on Main Street, Books in Beechwood, and then it's currently in Chapters in the Canada location. And if people wanted to get in touch with you, you have Twitter, Facebook. I'm on almost all the medias, yeah. Okay.
Drop me a line. I usually answer everybody, and it's great to hear from people.
You know, you're an author yourself. I'm assuming that you read quite a bit. What are your favorite things to read? Who's your favorite writer?
You know, the funny thing about that is, yes, I do read a lot. I have a small library at my house, but since I've started doing this in the last year and a half, I haven't had time to do a lot of reading. That's a bad thing. Like, I've really been restricted to, I hate to say this, comics and graphic novels.
Well, they're quite excellent. I don't think there's anything to...
No, for sure. But I mean, as far as authors that I liked, H.P. Lovecraft for sure, one of them. Poe, Edgar Allan Poe. Brian Lumley's another one. I liked Anne Rice, the first, before the Vampire Chronicles went sideways. That's just an opinion thing. And there's a handful. I like, the kind of stuff I like is very non-traditional. I like things that break the mold. I like things that surprise you, catch you out of left field. Because I find a lot of stuff today, literature as well as movies, it's easy to figure out what's happening. I like the ones that you can't figure it out. Those are the good stuff.
Okay. And it's very convenient that you're here as we're doing this interview. Tonight, the Ottawa Public Library is having their board meeting. I'm not going to get political about this, but I am really curious, just for some of our audience out there, you know, we're always thinking books are going to be replaced with ebooks or digital formats. There's so many other ways you can get your information. I still believe that a book is a lot more precious than a digital file, and like, I've always been reading since I was a kid. I don't think I'll ever stop reading. To me, it's really important. Where do you see reading and libraries, or just...
I can't see it going away, to be honest with you. I mean, I've just, not that this is a great indication or anything, but I just did my last 18 months of sales, and ebooks constitute a little bit under 4% of it. Part of the problem with, I'm going off a little bit of a tangent here. Part of the problem is, I know a lot of people, friends that they have a book and they want to put it out exclusively on ebooks because there's no overhead, they don't have to pay for print. And it's a great idea, but what a lot of people miss is when you do that, you are a voice in a sea of potentially billions screaming into the cyber void, and you won't be noticed. It's difficult to sell ebooks like that. Because even if you don't do a lot of publicity yourself, somebody could walk in a store and the cover could catch their eye. It's still a chance in itself. But as far as the future of books go, I know I'm of the mindset, I like holding a book. I like the smell of a book. I like the smell of the glue in the binding. I like the textile of it. Mm-hmm. And if most people do, there's something about holding the book that's precious, ultimately. I mean, ebooks have their place, and I don't think it's something that's ever going to go away, but I do think it's going to be something more of a niche than
the mainstream, the way that people would consume books. And you're an independent author. You're not published by Penguin or another big company. Why did you decide to go the independent route?
I think it's a sense of, it's terrible to say this, is doing what I want to do.
That's a great thing to say.
And when I first decided to start publishing the books, start getting them out there, I mean, I didn't go, and I don't go into this with the idea of making money. Now, let's be fair, I'm not going to this to lose money either. But that's not the primary goal. That's not what drives this. It's a passion. It's the meeting the people. It's getting out there. It's that interaction you have with people. That's what drives it.
Telling stories.
Telling stories, yeah. And at the end of the day, like, I've been asked this question in so many different ways at so many different events. But inevitably, somebody always asks you, what is it, at what point are you an author? And it's a good question because, I've had one individual thought it was an academic thing. I have somebody that thought that it was exclusively a publishing thing. And I think at the end of the day, you've said it yourself, if we cut it down to the bare bones, it's storytelling. That's all it is.
Welcome back to Apartment 613 Live on CHUO. My name is Livia Belcea. Our guest tonight was local author Michel Weatherall. You'll be able to meet Michel this Saturday at the Goddess of Love Valentine's Psychic and Craft Fair at the Bronson Center from 11 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. And on Saturday, February 25th, at Origin Trade on York Street for an intimate meet and greet from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. You can also get in touch with Michel through pretty much all social media platforms and find his books in many local bookstores, as well as ebook platforms. We're going to end the show with another track Michel paired up with his first book. This time it's a classical track by a composer many of you have heard of. In the background is the sound of Mozart, Don Giovanni. Make sure you check out the Apartment 613 blog and keep up to date with everything Ottawa at www.apt613.ca. And you can get social with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can also re-listen to the show by heading over to our SoundCloud page. I'm Livia Belcea, and this was Apartment 613 Live.